All right, we're live. Give it a second. Okay. Welcome to AAC on the Cloud. Today we have Cheri Dodge-Chin. She's going to be presenting modeling AAC within the Storybook reading activities. And I will pass that over to her.
Hi, can you hear me? Oh, okay, I see myself. So hopefully everyone can hear me. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm so excited to be with you here today and presenting for you. This presentation is about how we as AAC communication partners can effectively model AAC within the context of storybook reading activities. So I know if you were watching earlier this morning, some of these ideas were already shared, but what I'm hoping to do with you today is get into a little more specific detail one particular method and give you a chance to even role play with yourself, with your dog, with your child, with your spouse, with anyone around you, so that you can be a more effective communication partner when it comes to storybook reading. So let me get started here. My name is Cheri Dodge-Chin, and I'm currently a clinical doctoral student at Rocky Mountain University of Health Professions. Before COVID-19, I was expected to graduate in December of this year, but now I am really not sure anymore. I keep having setback after setback and have had to redo my entire research. So we'll see how that goes. I am a school-based speech language pathologist, and I've been at my current job for 19 years. And like many school-based speech pathologists, I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I have classrooms with children with complex communication needs, but I also have lots of kids who are articulation and language and, social skills and fluency and the whole gamut. But my real interest and what I've really been pursuing since my CF has been working with kids who have complex communication needs. A couple other things. I am the first speech language pathologist bloggers in the world. I started blogging in 2008, and my blog is called Superpower Speech. I am also a course curriculum and seller on Teachers Pay Teachers. And I could not figure out how to do, Zoom doesn't work well with my presentation mode. So I know you can see the outline of my PowerPoint here. You'll also see whenever PowerPoint doesn't like the way that I spelled something, and I apologize for that. I have yet to figure out a workaround for that on Zoom with my computer. Couple of disclosures. I do draw a salary from the David Douglas School District in Portland, Oregon, where I live. And ideas that I'm presenting might also be found on my blog, Superpower Speech. And materials that I will be presenting, some of them are also found on my Teachers Pay Teachers page. Non-financially, I am a student at Rocky Mountain University of Health Professions, and I am doing my doctoral research on shared reading and training communication partners. Okay, so the first area we're going to talk about is what the research says works with partner-based interventions, because as we know, communication requires partners. So I want to go through a few definitions so that we can all kind of be on the same page here regarding some terms. Many of these you are likely familiar with these terms, but just to go through it so that so that we all understand what it is that I'm referring to. First is the term unaided augmentative and alternative communication. So what that is things that involve your body. So these could include verbal speech, gestures, sign language, eye gaze, facial expressions, anything like that. It's just part of your body. Whereas aided AAC are communication systems that require external support outside of one's body. So these could be light tech, or sometimes called no tech, like pictures, communication boards. They could be, pens and pencils. They could be photos. They could be books. They could be photo books. I used that a lot during my CF, where I created photo books and encouraged my adult clients to do so as well. We can also look at some mid-tech options, and these are usually considered to be simple voice output. Often there's just like a battery required, and there are pre-stored messages that can have like one message, like a Big Mac, all the way up to 40 messages if you had like a GoTalk 9 or a GoTalk 20 with 2 levels, for example. And then we have our high tech, which are going to be our electronic communication systems. So these often they have batteries or a plug-in. There's often a computer chip involved. They can have thousands and thousands of vocabulary words if they're programmed that way. They can be on computers, they can be on tablets, they can be on dedicated devices, they can be apps to go on a tablet. There's lots of different options for high-tech communication. But just so you know, the things that I'm talking about today are mostly going to rely on light tech, simply because that is what I'm doing my research on, using light tech communication boards. And that's what we use a lot in my school, so that we can have consistency amongst a lot of our students. But everything I'm saying also will work for mid and high tech as well. And I'll give you some examples of that kind of as we go along. Okay, so what we want for individuals is a robust communication system, so that they can say what they want to whoever they want, whenever they want. A robust communication system relies on both the unaided, remember those are the things on your body, and aided communication based on the situation, intent of the message, and your communication partner. Light, Collier, and Parnes found that children may use a combination of systems depending on the context, the content, the function, and the role of the communication. I know for myself, I use mostly unaided communication, but I use so many different types. So you can, hear me using my voice. You can see me using gestures. Sometimes I drive people in my family crazy because I'll start signing to them and they're like, what are you talking about? But I use a lot of different communication systems, and that's going to be true for our individuals who have complex communication needs as well. All right. The researchers found that children who use aided augmentative communication don't always learn how to use these systems by themselves. Instead, they benefit from direct instruction and coaching to learn effective communication skills. So communication partners like therapists, parents, educators, peers, siblings, etc., typically are going to provide these interventions. Think of a typically developing child learning to write with a pencil or a pen. That child benefits from having years of instruction from adults and from peers on how to hold the pencil, right? I'm always correcting, my students and my kids not to go like this when they're capable, when they're able to actually do a tripod grasp, how to start shaping letters, how to put those letters together for words, how to make sentences, paragraphs, story, learn grammar, vocabulary, all of those things, right? They need someone else to help them learn that communication system. Multiple studies have showed that partner-based interventions are effective in increasing pragmatic, semantic, and syntactic skills of children using augmentative communication. Remember that communication partners are the people communicating with the individuals we're looking at. In the case today, we're referring to individuals who are using augmentative and alternative communication. The research has shown that effective interventions combine several strategies, not just one. And you've learned about that in many of the sessions that you've probably gone to already. Sometimes These different strategies are put together in what they call a treatment package. So there's lots of common strategies, but some of the most common strategies for working with communication partners include, most common interventions in general include training communication partners, modeling with AAC or with speech, providing increased communication opportunities through delays like this, or asking questions. Sometimes they will delineate WH questions versus open-ended questions, and they found that both are really useful, but one thing is that there's not enough open-ended questions, so that's always a great route to go. So you're not just testing the kid. And let's see, and prompting, and of course, providing feedback. So I'm going to go over just a few of these that I feel like are really important to talk about a little bit more. Most of us have heard the term modeling, and we're going to discuss it as one of the very important elements for successful intervention packages. This one has been researched over and over and over and over and over. So it's pretty easy to find some things to talk about there. So modeling refers to demonstrating a skill for another individual, not putting a flashy, glamorous filter on Snapchat. So you can see in the picture on the left, I'm demonstrating for my daughter how we can use a communication board to express key vocabulary. And I'm modeling for her what I hope that she's going to learn to do, just as I would model the verbal word mama if I wanted her to learn how to say mama. There's a significant body of research from the last 30 years supporting the use of modeling for AAC users. And because we want our AAC users to benefit from the most communication options available, modeling is going to combine verbal language with AAC language, such as a communication board or an app like Cough Drop or a dedicated device. It could also include other unaided language through gestures, facial expressions, and more. Wronski and Sevick state that modeling serves three functions. Communication modeling demonstrates ways to use communication systems. It provides experiences and illustrates symbol meanings, because as we all know, most of the symbols that are on our various AAC platforms are not clear at all what they mean. You know, in this case, as you can see here, there's a little roll of film. Like, I know it's a roll of film, but how many children out there would have any idea what that is? And finally, modeling encourages the use of AAC as a valid communication modality, which is one of the reasons why it is so important to be using communication systems, so that the AAC users can see that, oh, this really is a valid way to communicate with others. There's not a lot of reason to use a communication system if no one else in your family or in your classroom is ever one as well. So we want to provide them with knowing, especially in the beginning, look, this is a great way to communicate, and I'm going to teach you how to do it. So I was going through some of my research with another speech pathologist, and I was having her pretend like she was a parent for the research that I hope to be doing soon as my new IRB is approved. Cross fingers that that's soon. And this is an experienced speech pathologist, and she's done a lot of work with people with AAC and with modeling, but it was really interesting to watch her from the outside as I provided her with a communication board / system that she had never used before. This was new to her. I literally dropped it off at her house along with the book. And by watching her, it made me realize that there are a couple things that are really important to know about modeling. The first is that modeling should include multiple communication modes. So we want our AAC users to learn to communicate what they want to whoever they want and whenever they want. That means we need to help them in multiple ways to communicate. So we can point to icons to represent words. We can use our voice. We can write things down. We can gesture and more. So the first thing I realized as I was watching my friend model for her daughter is that it is so okay to use synonyms when we are trying to model on a communication system. Let's say that you have a communication board, such as the one that you can see on your screen here. This one has 66 words. Now, this is a white text communication system with no fringe. So this is it. You can't find the word here. It means you don't have the word. And actually, I took this board and I programmed it into the Cough Drop app for myself and my students so that they would have a way to use the same board with voice output. But there's no folders in this, okay? So this is just, let's just consider this our white tech. You are probably not going to have all the words that you're looking for. This doesn't have any fringe vocabulary, and that's okay. What you're trying to do is get across your main message here. Don't stress about the grammar. Don't stress about things like that. So if, for example, I was using this board and I read in my book the words, let's go. If you're on a big enough device right now and you can see what this board looks like, you will notice I don't have the word let and I don't have the word us. I do have the word go and I do have the word we. So I could put together and I could say we, actually, let me see, because I'm in PowerPoint, I might, no, I can't. So I could say we go. And then when I'm saying it out loud, I could use the exact words on my communication board. I could say we go, or I could say let's go, but just point to we and go. The point is to get your message across, not to necessarily use the exact words that are on the board. Okay, here's our next modeling tip. It is okay to simplify your grammar. Remember, our goal is to help AAC users communicate as effectively and efficiently as possible. So with simple AAC systems, such as a light tech board or a high tech that only has a few words on it because maybe your communication user has visual issues and can't see small squares, so they need big. So maybe there's only 20 on the screen. We're probably going to have to sacrifice some grammar, and that's okay. Every language and even every dialect uses grammar differently. So if you're worried that the word am or isn't on your main page because you're using that word in your speech, you need to just let it go. That's not the main point of what you're trying to say. So for example, if I wanted to say, I am feeling good. Okay, so if I wanted to do that word for word, I would be looking for I am, feel, possibly the ending ing, and good. I don't have those. I only have 66 words here, right? So what could I do instead? So there's multiple options. I could say, I feel good. I could just say, feel good. I could say, I good. Or heck, I could just model the word good. I don't even necessarily need to model all of the words. Remember that in American Sign Language, they don't have the words am or is. If you're doing signed English, they do. But if you American Sign Language, certain dialects in Spanish, I know you've dropped the pronouns often and just changed the verb endings. So grammar, for our beginning communicators, is not going to be the main point. The main point is to give them vocabulary, to help them put together words and things like that. So it's okay to simplify grammar. Okay, Another tip for modeling is that as a general rule of thumb, a lot of researchers say that what we want to do is we want to model one word more than you expect your AAC user to use. And so that's called the zone of proximal development in educational theory. You're working just a little more, or you're showing them just a little bit more challenging than what they're currently doing, so that you can slowly and gradually work their way up to increase knowledge. So if your AAC user is currently using one word, then you're going to be modeling 2 words. If your AAC user is using 2 words, then you're going to be modeling 3 words, right? So you're just upping the ante a little bit. Now, that doesn't mean that you necessarily are only going to speak in 2-word utterances, but it means that when you're modeling on the communication system, you might only model 2 or 3 words, depending on the individual. Okay, next modeling tip is don't stress. If you can't find the word or words you're looking for on the AAC system, that's okay. Don't stress. You do what you can, and then you move on. Some systems are going to have thousands of words, and you're probably going to find the word you're looking for. Some systems are not going to have very many words, and that's okay for now. You just move on as the partner. You don't want your AAC user to realize that communication might be a stressful thing. We want to make it a relaxed thing that they can really enjoy. And finally, for modeling tips, you want to be able to talk through finding a word. So on an AAC system with many words and folders, you might have trouble finding the word you're looking for. For example, if I wanted to talk about my dog, first I would look on whatever my home screen was, my main page, and I'd be like, well, yeah, dog's not on here. And then I'd talk out loud. I'll say, well, let's see. A dog is an animal. Great. So let's go to the animal pages. And then I would model going to the animal pages. And then I go, okay, let's see my animal choices. Is it a pet? Is it a farm animal, or is it a forest animal? Well, a dog's a pet. So I'm going to go here, and I go to pet, and we go, oh, here it is, dog. Let's talk about dogs. My dog is currently chewing apart his brand new toy we got him. Isn't that so silly? Okay, but now let's try a different example. The picture on the right here is a chinchilla. My daughter had the most wonderful and sweetest chinchilla in the world. Not all chinchillas are sweet. We've had experiences with very unsweet chinchillas, but this one was just the sweetest, and he passed away last week. And it was really sad, and I may have cried a little. So chinchilla, we're going to look for that word. I want to talk about my daughter's chinchilla with her because this is a big deal, right? So I would again start and say, okay, chinchilla, that's an animal. So let's go to animals. And let's see, we got pet, farm, forest. Well, let's start with forest animals. I'm not really sure. Let's go there. We go to forest animals, and then we look through, and I'm like, oh, gosh, I don't see chinchilla here. Let's go back. Let's try pets, because your chinchilla was a pet. So you go back, you go to pets, you look through pets, and you're like, sorry, honey, they don't have the word chinchilla. And that's okay. And you're talking through this, and you're like, look, this is the word we're looking for. Sometimes we can't find it. And then I would just say, we're just going to call it for now. Or I would program the word in if it were a high-tech device. But for right now, we're just going to call it because we don't have a word for chinchilla in your device. And do you notice how I kind of walked through all the different steps of trying to find that word? Just to make it a meta activity, you want your AAC user to really be thinking about, how would I find this word? Or what could I use instead of this word if I can't find it in my system? Okay, so all of that is the background here for storybooks and when and how to use storybooks when modeling. So if you came to the presentation this morning. It was very early for me because I'm on the West Coast. It was 8 in the morning, so I missed the beginning. You'll know that shared reading is an awesome way to work with individuals who experience complex communication needs. So shared reading works on teaching language, promoting back and forth communication, enhancing metalinguistic skills, which means learning about language, learning new vocabulary, reinforcing concepts such as basic concepts, and of course, also promoting literacy skills. So one way that we can interact with our AAC users during shared read, well, during any kind of interaction, right? It could be during playtime, it could be during routines, but we're talking about shared reading right now, is using non-sequenced interventions. And that means that there are treatment packages, like we talked about before, where there's like maybe 5 different things that you as a communication partner are going to try to use consistently during that interaction time with your individual. So some of the most common ones would be things like modeling, which we've talked about, encouragement, like, wow, yeah, I think so too, and be like, yeah, okay, wait time and pausing. We're going to talk about more about wait time later. Providing natural prompts. So instead of necessarily doing a WH question, a natural prompt could be like, oh, I've been to the zoo too. Do you remember when we went to the zoo? Right? Questioning, and that also falls under questioning, and commenting, and be like, I can see you really like that page because you love dogs. Yeah. And you're going to provide those in kind of any order that you want, and just try to help your individual communicate more and interact more within the reading. There's various different research studies out with different acronyms for cool ways to use these. And I'm not going to get into them right now. But what I do want to do is I want to show you a video of myself, and hopefully the sound is going to work. In a trial earlier, the sound did work, but then in a trial before that, it didn't work. So hopefully it's going to work. And what you're going to see during this video is I'm going to be reading just a few pages. This is only like 30 seconds long, of the book Brown Bear, Brown Bear. And I have a communication board with me. And the point of this was it was a training. I'm doing a training, and I'm showing people how to model with a communication board. So what I want you to do is watch this video, and I want you to think, I do a great job of modeling here different words on the communication board. Okay, I'll give you that. But what I want you to see is if I do any of these other things. Now, you do have to give me a little grace here, knowing that I'm not actually interacting with another individual. This is just, like I said, a training video. But let's pretend like my daughter is next to me, and this is how I'm reading the story with her. So I want you to put in the chat, if you can, things that you see that maybe I'm doing a good job of, and things that I probably need to improve on. And again, let's hope that the sound works.
And you'll see I don't have all the fringe vocabulary that I need, but that's okay. I just keep moving on. Brown bear, what do you see? I see a red bird looking at me. Red bird, what do you see? I see a yellow duck looking at me.
Okay, can someone put in the chat if they were able to actually hear me? I can see the chat. I have 3 screens because I don't see small print very well, so I have to have lots of big screens. Okay, great. Someone said they could hear. Okay, so can you put in the chat, if you're able to, some positives? Okay, give me some positives, because I need to be built up a little bit here. So someone said that I use slowed pace, which was a positive. I'm going to go back here to some of these strategies that you can use. Any other positives you can think of? I know I modeled the words. That was one thing I know I did well. Repetition of core words, lots of modeling, etc. Okay, great. So, but now what I really want to do is have you think about that little 30-second interaction and think about the things that I maybe could have improved on if I really had my daughter sitting next to me. I'll tell you when I see something in case there's people who are not on the Slack channel right now. What are some things that maybe next time I should have done? Okay, yeah. Someone said slower and ask questions. Absolutely. I didn't ask any questions. I just kind of went, let's just get through this. I could have referenced and pointed to the book to connect the language. I could have made predictions and interaction and shared the intervention or shared the content of that story with the child, him or herself, right? Related that to the child and be like, oh, do you remember when we saw that bear when we were camping, right? Those are all things that I could have done. My wait time and my pausing, I gotta say, as I've learned more since I made this video, were pretty terrible. I really didn't provide any wait time at all. And that was something I definitely feel like I should have done a much better job on. Okay, so now a different video. Let me give you a little bit of background with this. This is distance learning circle time. When we all moved to distance learning, I told my self-contained teachers, I said, I'll keep doing circle time because I regularly do circle time in their classrooms. And so I have my core, my manipulative core 66 behind me. And part of circle time is reading a story, a real simple story. So in this, you're going to see this video is about a minute long, and you're going to see me reading reading a really simple story on my iPad. So I have to move my iPad up really close to the screen so that you can see it better because there's glare and reflection. And what I want you to do again here is take a look at these different strategies. So I want you to see modeling, encouragement, wait time, prompts, questions, comments, etc. How am I doing on this? Because it's actually quite different, and I still have much room for improvement on this one, but in a different way. So go ahead and watch this and write down some things that you feel like I did a good job of, and then maybe some things that for next time I need to improve on. Again, give me a little grace here, knowing that I am doing this through distance learning, and this is not even live. This is asynchronous distance learning. So I'm just trying to read the book so that my students at some point later in the week will watch it. Okay, and again, hopefully the audio is going to work. Caroline Musselwhite has a thing where she, before she starts, she crosses her fingers and she says something like, technology, work, or something cute like that. And I feel like that's a very good little mantra.
This silly story is about it keeps flipping to the last page. No. I want the first page. Okay, that is a big oops. This story is called Walter Whale. Let me get it up close for you. Walter Whale. He is a whale. See the fin or the tail, I mean? Whale. He is a whale. Walter Whale lives under, that was our word 2 weeks ago, the water with his Uncle Will. That was a lot of W's, wasn't it?
And then here, I'm just going through really fast. take a look at my modeling or lack thereof. You can't hear this part because it's like triple speed.
Uncle Will said, watch that boat on the water. The boat is on the water. First question is a who. We talk about who questions, and there's a clue on here. Who is a person or a main character. Now remember, our story doesn't have any people, so it's going to be a main character.
Okay, so I just cut it off there because I didn't want this to be a super long video clip. But as you can see, it's pretty different. So if anyone wants to give me a few positives, help fill me up before you tell me all the things that I need to improve on. I saw one person had said that I did a nice job of the unexpected opportunity to model first, modeling vocabulary such as commenting and social phrases, use of gestures and speech, and overall multimodal communication, using sign, verbal expression, visual as core vocabulary. Yeah, those are some things that because I've had to rewatch this video like 5-6 times now, and those are some things that I noticed that I felt confident about. So now though, let's go to these different non-sequenced interventions and see what are some things that maybe I should have done differently, assuming that I actually had an individual, with me, or that I was providing synchronous therapy, which I wasn't. What are some things that I probably should have, or for next time, let's think about it for next time, I should concentrate on to do a little better next time. Use of a pronoun for whale. Yeah, I could have totally used he for whale. I didn't have any fringe vocabulary, and that's okay because this is the same board I use for everything, right? So these are my core words. Pausing, I should have paused more. I could have had opportunities for individuals to say, turn the page, right? Sometimes I do that. I did not do that in this example. Slowing down, someone recommended. Yes, Diane or Dion, I don't know how to pronounce your name. More core board. Totally. In the first video that I showed you where I was doing brown bear, I used the core board like crazy, right? And in this one, I totally didn't. I only used it from time to time. And there's 66 words on there. And I made this core board, so I'm extremely familiar with the words on this core board. I really should have been using it more. I absolutely agree with that. Okay, and then targeting a specific word to learn where it is on the core board. Yes. So what you didn't see is that during the rest of the circle time, the main word, the word of the week was want, because we were on letter W. And so I actually just spent a lot of time during that overall circle time practicing the word want, finding it on the core board. But I didn't in the story. I really should have used it more in the story. I pointed out how we did you for under in a previous week, but not in that one. Yes, and someone says it's very hard when you're juggling it all, which is true. It is, especially when I've got I have an iPad here, a computer here, a core board in back of me. I'm rolling around in my office. On some of these, my dog is in the room with me. I am juggling a lot. I get that. But there's always room for improvement, right? We can always get better at this. Okay. So let's move on. Those were unsequenced interventions. Now we're going to talk about some sequenced interventions. And what sequence interventions means is that there's going to be a specific order to use partner interventions. So these are sometimes called treatment packages as well. They can include aided modeling, expectant pausing, responding to communication attempts, all while following a sequence procedure, like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so one sequence procedure is used a lot by Kent Walsh and Binger and some other researchers, and it's called a read, ask, answer program technique. And then in 2010, Binger et al. Added a fourth step, which was a P for prompt at the end. So that would be like, your turn, or show me two. And the raw and RAP procedures, as I'm going to refer to them because they make for a good acronym, are the focus of my current doctoral research. So these are what I'm getting very familiar with. The research has shown that individuals who used the raw and the RAP procedures, that the participants took more communication turns, they produced more spontaneous communication, and they used more multi-symbol messages. The communication partners have been found to increase their use of these strategies within storybook reading after they went through a series of training. The CAR, comment, ask, respond, wasn't originally intended for children who use AAC, but instead is part of a package called Language and Key. Language is key. And the goal of the program was to help parents and caregivers facilitate language development. The communication partners learned strategies during play and book reading, which is kind of cool because then they could use these strategies in more than one setting. So, oops, whoa, I skipped ahead here. So what they did is they were told to make comments, to ask questions, and then to respond to any communication attempts. So again, we're going to talk specifically about RAP for the next 15 minutes, because this is what I'm doing for my research. So RAP is read, then ask, then answer, then prompt, with the goal of having your individual with complex communication needs communicate or participate in the interaction. So it goes in a specific order. However, here's something that it's a little hard to wrap your brain around at first. You don't have to go through all the procedures. So if you read, and then I'm going to call them your child, okay, because we're talking about shared reading. If you read and your child responds or communicates, you don't have to do the rest of the steps. You can just go, great, you're going to respond to it, you're going to turn the page. Or maybe you read and then ask, and then your child responds or tries to communicate, and then you're going to respond to them and turn the page. You're only going to go through all of these RAP procedures if you have an individual who's not taking a communicative turn within the shared reading experience, who's being more of a passive listener. Okay, so I made this little flow chart, and this goes into more of the specifics for the RAP procedure. You can see this arrow going down, showing this is the order that it's followed. And you also, when you look at flow charts of this, there's also other flow charts that have lots of other arrows, but it played on my brain, so I made it this way instead. The goal of the communication partner here is to elicit language or communication, and then to respond to the child. So how they're going to elicit is they're going to read, ask, answer, and prompt. And with each of those steps, they also need to model on the AAC system, add an expectant pause, and then respond to any communication attempts by commenting, questioning, acknowledging, doing the action, etc. Okay, so remember RAP, we got RAAP. For each of those RAP, we're going to have the model, the pause, and the response. Let me just show you that again one time right here. We got the model, the expectant pause, and the respond. So I decided that we need to have a MER person to go along with that to help you remember that for every step you're going to be doing MER. So the first is you're going to model the words on the AAC system. That could be a light tech communication board. That could be a high tech app like a Cough Drop or Words for Life. That could be a mid tech like, you know, a GoTalk or a Big Mac. You're going to provide an expectant pause. So the research has kind of varied on this, but they all seem to say at least 5 seconds. Some of the research actually says 20 seconds, and that's a really long time. I'm gonna do 5 seconds for you right now, and I'm not even doing like Mississippi. So I'm going to do 5 seconds. I'm just going to count with my fingers, and I want you to think about how long 5 seconds actually is. Are you ready? Okay. That is a long time for us to wait. But guess what? We have a lot of kids that need that much time in order to process what you just said and to coordinate their movements for how they're going to respond and communicate back. And if you talk as fast as I am doing right now, or as fast as I did in those videos I showed you, it's by the time they're ready to talk, I'm going to be 4 pages ahead of them. And then finally, respond. We want to respond to any communication that the child makes by commenting, doing what they said, questioning, adding a little bit more, just making it an interactive experience for them. Okay, so I wanted to go into a little more detail here. We talked about modeling already. I just wanted to define it as showing what you want the child to communicate by verbally saying it and pointing to it on the AAC system. And it provides the child with an extra way to communicate. Something that's really interesting, my first research proposal, which I had to scrap when COVID happened, was I wanted to actually see if there was a difference between modeling right as you are saying the words synchronously, or if it was just as effective or even more effective to say the words, and then model the words afterward. So my original plan was to do synchronous versus asynchronous. And before distance learning, no one knew what those words mean. And now everyone understands what they mean. So right now, we really don't have any research to show if one is better than the other. So just do whatever you feel the most comfortable with. Expectant pausing, we talked about this, waiting at least 5 seconds so that our children have that extra time to process the information and then respond. And then responding is responding to any communication attempts that the child shows, says, questions, etc. And it might just be that their eye gaze, like you're reading the story and then their eyes shift to something else in the story, and acknowledge that and be like, talk about it. Be like, yeah, look at that bird up there. Wow, I wonder what he's doing. Okay, so now for the last just couple minutes here that we have together, we are going to role play. And the reason we're going to role play is because part of my research has been about how to train adults. And one important factor in training adults so that you get results is role playing. Another one would be providing immediate feedback, but I can't do that for you right now. So we're just going to kind of have to settle on what we have. So I am going to show you this. This is my Core 66. So this is the same thing I had up on my wall. And this is one of the pages from the book that I read earlier. The page says Walter Whale lives underwater with his uncle Will. So what I want you to do, and you can do this in your head or you can do it out loud, depending on if you're with other people right now or if you're by yourself, is practice going through the RAP steps. And I'm going to help walk you through it. We're going to go through all 4 steps of RAAP. So hopefully you can see the Core 66 well enough to point towards certain words. And what I want you to do is read out loud this page and then point to 1 or more words on the core and wait 5 seconds. And then I'll tell you the next thing to do after that. So you ready? Okay, go ahead. I'm not watching you, I promise. Go in a closet if you feel self-conscious about this. Read the page and model 1 or 2 words and then wait 5 seconds. Go. Okay, so if you can see words on the core, you'll see there's not a lot to model here because there's a lot of fringe vocabulary up in this first page. But what I would probably do for this one is Walter Whale, he lives underwater with his uncle Will. And that's another he, right? Because they're both happen to be boys' names. Okay, so we did the read part. Our child was just listening but didn't respond. So now we're going to do the ask. So I want you to think of a question that you could ask that has to do with this page. Because again, you're trying to get involvement in this page. So ask the question, find the words, spoiler alert, purple words here are my WH words, and then wait 5 seconds. Okay, so if it were me, I'd probably, since these are just main characters, would be like, who does he live with? Who does he live with? Right here, if you can see my screen. I'm not sure if you can. Okay. I'm trying to watch myself at the same time. You may find that very odd, but that way I can see what's going on. Okay, now your child is still just listening, not responding. So you are going to answer your own question. Because why? Because chances are you're going to read this book 100 times with your kid, right? So it's okay to just tell them the answer. And then maybe next time they will respond when you ask that question. So I would say he was with Uncle Will, or he is a whale, or whatever it is that is best going to answer that. And then I'd wait 5 seconds, because maybe they're going to repeat it after you. Or you're going to be like, huh, that's so silly. Okay, and then we did read, ask, answer. They still haven't communicated. They're still just being a passive listener. So now we're going to prompt them. And my favorite prompt, because it's easy and we can just do the same one over and over, is, it's your turn. And then I'd point to your turn, right? So I'd be like, your turn. And now, after all that, my communication partner is like, and they point to, or they say, or they use eye gaze to tell me that they say like. So now I need to respond. Okay, so I know we only have just like a few minutes left, but this is the last thing we're going to do. In the chat, tell me something that you could say to respond to them. You just went through this whole page. They did finally respond at the very end of your wrap procedure, and they said the word like. So what could you say in response to that? I want to see if anyone can quickly come up with an answer for that one. And there's no right or wrong answer. There's a million trillion things that you could actually say. Yeah, someone said like that. Oh, you like the story. You like him. I like it too. Right, these are all great things. It could be like, I like whales, just like you, right? I like Walter too. Or you could ask him a question, right? And be like, who do you like? Or what do you like? So you can make a comment, ask a question, anything. And maybe your child here, it was an accident. Maybe they didn't even mean to touch the word like. They were just kind of swatting at the communication board. That's okay. You treat it as intentional so that your child learns, oh, cause and effect. When I touch this board, my communication partner, my mom, has something to say about that. Someone asked if you use AAC when you respond, and you can. I think a lot of it's just going to depend on what words you have on your device. If you have the words that you want to say, then I would absolutely use the AAC and your voice together to respond. If you don't, then maybe you have to respond verbally, because maybe it's just fringe words. So I had been hoping to practice this with different scenarios. We went through the R, A, A, P. I wanted to try again where it was just R and just R, A, A, but we are basically out of time. So I just want to see if anyone had any quick questions for me. You can also always contact me by email. I like email. It's my friend. It's Cheri at superpowerspeech.com. And all of my handles for all of my different social media and blog and all that are just Superpower Speech. because we're a little bit into superheroes here in this family. So if you have any questions, I do have the Slack channel up. Although, you know, it might be pretty self-explanatory, especially if you saw the awesome presentation earlier this morning on shared reading.
Okay, thank you so much. That was great. I really enjoyed it, and I think everybody else did too. Thank you so much.
You are welcome.
All right, so if nobody had any questions, then we will end it.